Hey guys, this is What If Ben 10 Was an Invincible Part 1. Now this is doing Season 1, and I'm going to continue it through Season 2 once I finish the big finale of this series. A lot of characters' origins and a lot of characters' decisions in this series and its fanfiction will be changing the course of Season 2 and probably the rest of the story once Season 3 comes out eventually. But yeah, also we'll be continuing my What If Shazam Was an Invincible series. So I hope you guys enjoy that. Now I think I did make a Benton What If series back in the past, but I'm going to be redoing this. But yeah. So let's dive right into it. Now, I just looked up. I had to take a little break. I did a little time jump. I never made an Invincible Benton What If. And honestly, I don't know why I never did. But let's dive right into this fanfiction. I'll start our story off with episode 1 of Invincible Season 1. Now, we start off with two, security guards talking it, and one of them talking about his new stepson. But then being interrupted by the Mueller twins trying to target the president, as they would have been going against the president's self-defense mechanisms and pretty much running through it. The bullet's not even phasing them, as they would have been talking and bantering towards each other, saying that I'm not the clone, you are. And the usual Mueller twins activity. Eventually, the Guardians of the Globe would have showed up, as they would have started to fight, as eventually we would have been introduced to, well, a new hero, Grandpa Max. Now in this universe, Grandpa Max would have actually been born a little differently. Him being a version or a slight, alien-based version of Darkwing. Him basically being like a Batman. And Grandpa Max being a little bit more younger, like on the 40 to 30, late 30s era of his age. The Grandpa Max would have been fighting alongside the Guardians of the Globe, being one of the founding members. As they were starting to fight, and just a disclaimer, in this universe, I'm thinking too much like Spider-Man. But Grandpa Max would have been genetically modified by the Preliminary Academy to make him the best. But also the Omnitrix being a part of, his little alien entanglement, then finding him worthy enough to have the Omnitrix. But that will come in later on in the universe and later on in the story. If you know the Benton lore, you know what I'm talking about. But honestly, overall, the fight went pretty easily and actually went a lot faster, because in this universe, Uncle Ben wouldn't be, Superman, Ultraman, like Omni-Man to immortal levels of strength. He would be around the same strength as Darkwing's psychotic sidekick in season 2, basically having cybernetic enhancements to make him faster, stronger, and just better, slightly more better than the average human, or the peak human, matter of fact. So him basically being a cybernetic super soldier. But yeah, now eventually Molotons would have been put into custody, being taken out by the team, as this would have all been, basically taken care of. Now, Omni-Man would have shown up and would have saved the team, or would have specifically saved Darkwing from being crushed, as we would have seen that Grandpa Ben would have been seeing this from afar. Grandpa Max would have been seeing this from afar, and basically thinking very, cautiously about Omni-Man. Him having suspicions of what he really is, but that will be coming in place later on. Now, what would happen under the course of after the events of the Guardians of the Globe taking down the Mueller twins and saving the president, as they would have been put into custody, like I said earlier, as we would have been switched to Mark on the toilet, as Mark would have been reading a book, as he would have been interrupted by his mom telling him to get ready for school. As he would have been on the toilet, his mom would have just walked into the restroom, her going on about it. It's something I haven't seen before. I changed the diapers as a kid. Nothing phases me anymore. As Mark would have gotten really pissed and said, "Get out!" As we would have been switched to, him watching the news, as he would have seen his dad help the Guardians of the Globe. As Mark would have been, pretty much saying that he wished he had his powers, and that yada yada yada. As he said he wishes he had his powers, just like Ben, as we would have been switched to Ben's story a little bit earlier in this comic book, or in this universe, us being switched to Ben's story. As we would have seen Ben wake up for the day. As Ben would have been waking up for the day, as he would have gotten out of his house. As he would have lived in the same neighborhood as, Mark. In this universe, Mark and, Ben being childhood best friends. But one summer, when they were both 10, well, let's just say Ben had a very big change of his history. Something from a very faraway place changed the course of his life and made him a hero, made him Ben 10. Now, since they would have been the same age, now Ben and Mark are exactly the same age. Now, Ben would have been the same age as Mark at this time, but he would have gotten the Omnitrix about when he was about, let's say, 11 years old. As he would have had the Omnitrix, him saving, and basically having somewhat exactly the same adventures he had in the original Ben 10 TV show, and us driving into a new universe, but this being the, well, Alien Force version of Ben 10, a more grown-up teenage version of Ben 10, but changed by the courses of the Invincible universe, characters, and story. And different characters and different relationships and different family members being in this new universe. As it would have been shown that, well, Adam Eve would have been Ben's cousin. As Eve would have been Ben's cousin because she had very similar powers to the type of, superheroes in the, or super, let's say, I can't remember the race. They're not the Tetramans. Tetramans, I think, are the diamond creatures, diamond heads species. But honestly, they are around the same thing. Now, in this universe, Eve's powers would have been exactly somewhat the same, modified by her genetic modifications, but her being merged with alien DNA. So this was, she would have been born with that power, with that gene, but they would have never noticed it after they did experiments on her. As in this universe, she would have been adopted, taken care of, but her real family would have been related to Ben, or Max. As Max would have found him eventually, would have found her eventually, and would have eventually come to raise her and basically return her, not to her parents, but give her to her foster parents. The same parents that we see in the Ben, or in the Invincible universe. As we would have seen that in this universe, she would have had the powers of Gwen, plus the powers of her own, being incredibly overpowered at this point. But her still being kind of new to her magic abilities on her alien side. But her being a lot more cautious with her more, man-made powers she made, or she has. So we would have seen Ben walking around. As Ben would have started the conversation with Max, telling him, I'm about to go off to school, and saying that, have a great day, Grandpa Max. As he would have said goodbye to his mom and dad. As he would have walked out the house, him seeing Mark across the street, jumping up and trying to fly. As Ben would have laughed out, as he would have looked at the mailman, his mailman would have just walked past both of them. As Max would have told Ben to be careful outside the door, as Ben would have said, I'm good. As Ben in this universe, they would have not known Ben's identity, as Ben would have normally been out in public with him being these different aliens. No one really knowing him, but putting two and two together because each of his transformations is the same logo, them having pretty much theories of it's a superhero team, or more of fact, it's the same person with some sort of shape-shifting power. Now, we would have seen that Ben and Mark would have catch the bus and would have arrived at school. As they would have been walking down the hallways, as we would have seen that basically they would have had a very solid friend group. Also, William being one of both of their best friends, as it would have been chilling. Eventually, we would have seen that they would have came across, well, the douche, the jerk, the jock, as he would have tried to bully Mark. As Ben would go for the Omnitrix, but Mark looking at him, as he would have just gotten pummeled down and him being kind of pissed off, but Ben seeing Amber help him up, as Ben would have walked off, pretty much smiling, telling William to let it slide, as Mark's about to pick up something a little bit, dark. As we would see that Ben would have been a little bit more of a cheeky, a lot more cockier person in this universe than he was originally. But he would still have that same heart, soul, and pretty much courage that original Ben has. Him not backing down to nobody. Just like Mark. As we would see that Mark would have been taking out the trash at his job, as we would have seen that he would have thrown the trash up in the sky while discovering his abilities. And basically, well, him being extremely excited about this. Now what would happen is, well, Mark would have told his dad that night, as his dad would have gotten kind of flustered and pretty weird. As it was like something that wasn't supposed to happen, something that he was fearing to happen. But we would have seen that, well, no one would have been pretty much pushed by Grace, or not Grace, but Debbie, to be a little bit more supportive. As Mark would have been kind of, pissed that night, but him being restless that night, as he would have been, well, getting up, about to go fly. As we would have seen that, he would have seen Ben from across the street, basically toying with the Omnitrix through his window. As we would have seen that Ben would have sit down, as he would have had a flashback back to when he was 11, when he first got the Omnitrix, having a talk with his grandpa. As would have been switched back to back with Mark's flashback with his father when he was around that age, talking about Viltrum and how it was a peacekeeping planet, very different to what it originally was. If you know the story, you know the story. I'm not going to be any real spoilers, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, he would have told him that they were peacekeepers and that one day he'll be just like him. He'll be just like them, as he'll have a duty to Viltrum. As he would have also told him that you're going to be able to fly one day. As Mark would have came out his window, basically about to go for a fly. As we would have seen from across the street, well, Ben would have looked over, seen Mark about to jump, as he would have said, what the hell? As, well, Mark would have gone for it. Him jumping and floating and flying up into the sky. As Ben would have saw this, as he would have transformed into Jet Ray, as he would have flew after Mark. Staying a distance, trying to see what Mark's doing. As Mark would have almost gotten hit by a plane, him flying around and basically losing a little bit of consciousness. As he would have been flying around left and right, being super, basically just, overwhelmed. As he would have been flying out of the atmosphere, him not controlling his powers. As we would have seen that, well, Ben would have saved him last minute, flying him back down to Earth and gently throwing him back into his bed before he hit the ground. As we would have seen that, Ben would have left the house, him flying back to his house, and the next morning, we see that Mark would have gotten waken up by his alarm, as his dad would have woken him up in his hero costume, saying that it's your first day of training, Skyboy. As, well, he would have gotten out, and he would have started to train with Nolan. Now, this part of the story wouldn't be changed a lot, because it would be their story. It would be Mark's story. Mark is the one that evolving in this story, and in this part of the episode. As we switch back to Ben, as Ben would have been on a training mission with one of his childhood rivals, but yet friends, Kevin 11. Kevin would have been a childhood friend, or more of a frenemy, him befriending basically the group. Now, he would have had a relationship with Eve, because Eve would still be in a relationship with, Rexplode at the time. Now, we would see that Ben would have had a connection with Kevin, as they would have been on a mission with the plumbers. Now, the plumbers still being a part of this community, and actually staying a little bit away from, I can't remember his name, but I think it was the old dude that pretty much had suspicions about Omni-Man after the Guardians of the Globe were, let's just say, dealt with later on in the story. Now, basically, very simple. This story, this group of characters, the plumbers, would have been very underkept. A big organization, but no one, not even him, would know about it. As Ben would have been under this organization working for them. As he would have been on a mission after a certain alien. An alien that landed on planet Earth a few weeks prior that was causing some trouble. This alien being a Pyronite, one of Heat Blast's species. As Ben would have been trying to convince him to calm down, as he would have transformed into Heat Blast, trying to become a more familiar face to this Pyronite. As this Pyronite would have been kind of pissed off, seeing to back off and getting hotter and hotter and hotter, burning the concrete underneath him, or melting it. As it would have looked closer, seeing that it was something different. He had 5 fingers. He was more human-like. He was a hybrid. As he would have tried to convince him to calm down. Eventually, Kevin just getting sick of it, turning into some rubble, and basically just socking the shit out of this kid. I mean, laying him out. He was out for the count. Bro was gone. Bro was DeVito. Bro was dead. He got sent to the gulag. Like, bro. GG's, my man. GG's. As we started to try to start a conversation with this kid after he woke up in Plumber Base. plumber headquarters. One of the headquarters that were designated in the city Mark and his father are in. As they would have started to talk and basically interrogate this Power Knight, as he would have been in his human form, this being Kenny, well not Kenny, but the Power Knight, half human, half Power Knight kid we saw in Alien Force in the original series. As we would have seen that this version of him would have been changed a little bit. Him being well made and born on Earth, but him going to Pyro or going to his home planet that his father's from to try to figure out his roots. As he would have came back to Earth, his powers being unlocked and his powers being overwhelmingly, well, destructive. As Ben would have talked to Grandpa Max, trying to convince him maybe it's good for him to go into the Plumber Academy. Maybe he should be trained under the Plumber Academy. As Max would have said, you're not even in the Plumber Academy. As Ben would have said, yeah, I've been training, I've been a hero for a few years now, but I've saved the universe time in and time out again and again and again. I don't really need to go to the Plumber's Academy. As Grandpa Max would have said, whatever. As the Plumber Academy, if you guys don't know, because the coalition of planets exists in this universe, are actually intertwined with the coalition of planets. And it's basically one huge group. The coalition of planets and the plumber and the plumbers. They're all split down into one group, but the plumbers are more kind of men in black part of the coalition of planets. Not really big and flashy, but yet gets the job done and does a little bit more covertly. And they're basically space cops around the whole universe. Like, even Vulturemites know them, and even Vulturemites have killed a few of them, but a few of them have killed the Vulturemites as well. Very powerful aliens. And since in this Ben 10 universe, those aliens exist, like aliens like Alien X, Humongousaur, and characters that are similar, or if somewhat as strong as Vulturemites do exist in this universe. Vulturemites are still very powerful. Now, their mentality makes them a lot more stronger than any Tetraman, than any Pyro Knight, or any other Ben 10 alien that's in the Omnitrix. More of the basic ones, but yeah. But we would have seen that Ben would have gone back home after this encounter, basically getting this kid underneath their wings. As we would have seen that Ben would have been on his own thing, taking down criminals around the city, eventually running into Mark, or what he would see as some sort of newcomer with some sort of bandana and some junky thrown together suit. As he would have been in his Ditto form, as he would have taken down a couple robbers, overwhelming them with multiple versions of himself. As we would see that he would have transformed back into Ben, as Ben would have had kind of like a ski mask on in case he was ever timed out. But him being the teenage Omnitrix and the Omnitrix being recalibrated to teenage Ben, it basically being a lot more, him being more used to these transformations, as he never took it off to begin with after Vilgax, because in this universe, aliens and villains and all those other things would be very common, so he never had a reason to really take it off. So you still have the Omnitrix on, and it would recalibrate one day around his 7 or 16, 15-year birthday. Now, during this time, we would have seen that Ben would have kind of confronted him, saying, well, who are you, man? You almost broke the whole city. You're kind of reckless. As they would have been interrupted by, Nolan. As Nolan would have told Ben to step back, as he would have recognized Nolan as, Omni-Man, and also Nolan and also Mark's dad, as he would have backed up saying, Mark? You got... As he would have just scoffed saying, handle him, and also tell him to be a little bit, safer next time. As Ben would have just scoffed at Mark, saying that I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but you almost got someone killed. And I don't play around having people dying and being killed on the job. As we'll learn more about why Ben is so hung up on that, way more than he is in the original series, because something happened in this universe. Something bad happened. That one time, Ben just became too careless one day. Became too reckless one day. But we get switched away from been to Mark's story, as Mark would have been having a talk with his dad, him saying, I want to do what you do, I want to be like you. As he would have had a, father-son heartfelt moment, as Mark would have been taken to the tailor to get his new costume, as he would have tried on Bulletproof's costume, as the yellow and orange suit, but he also would have asked for something a little bit more original, as he said he'll come back once he comes up with a name, as he would have basically gotten a little bit, ready, a lot more better in this universe, as he would have gotten ready, as we would have seen that Debbie would have still had a talk with Mark, saying that since you were a kid, it was just you and me. Father was always off finding some aliens or some bad guys or some wizard, but yada yada yada. But basically the usual stuff that happened in the original series or the original episode. Now what would have happened is eventually Mark would have had a talk with his dad, him saying that a lot of kids your age think they're invincible, but in your case, it makes you stronger because you are invincible. As well, Mark would have taken this to heart. Him going to, Arts, and basically telling him that he wants, his suit name to be invincible. His name to be invincible. As he would have gotten his suit with the eye. I never noticed it was an eye. Actually, I swear to God, I did not notice it was supposed to be an eye. I just thought it was like a color scheme, but yeah. So Mark would have been, basically doing his thing. As he would have been going around the city, basically taking out some crime. As he would have also came across, Ben in the skies. As Ben would have been, in his stinkfly form. As he would have been flying around. As Mark would have said, dang, you smell like, and as basically, Ben would have said, yeah. It was the first flying alien I got when I pressed the omnitrix on random. I was just trying to catch some air. As he would have been flying around, as he would have started to talk and fly through the clouds, as eventually they would have started to talk. As Mark would have said, why were you so mean to me earlier? As Ben would have said, it's things that happened to me when I started off becoming a hero. It could have went completely differently, but let's just say being a hero isn't the best thing. You lose people. You cause problems when you're not careful enough. As Ben would have just thrown it off with a joke, like he normally does, him going to humor to make it all lighten up, him throwing his one-liners around like it's nothing. As eventually, they would have gone off the separate ways, basically them saving the city together, using as a team, as people would have started to speculate that they were a team now, and they were basically best friends. As Ben and Mark, their whole childhood since Ben got his powers, and Mark was told he would get his powers, they always dreamed of fighting side by side, being a superhero team, as they now can be that. As we would have seen that, they would have taken down, the gun guy, as he would have boxed him up, doing a double tag team, as Ben would have been in his humongous sword form at this time, throwing jabs, kicks, punches, and swift lows and blows on this guy. As Mark would have thrown a finishing punch, knocking him out clean. As we would have ended it off here. So guys, yeah. So we'll end off this part of this part of the story. But doing this part of the story, we can switch to the Guardians of the Globe. And we can switch to Grandpa Max. Grandpa Max would have been busy with the Plumber Academy, so he wouldn't answer the Guardians of the Globe's attack or call, because in this universe, right under the president, he would have actually retired. Now, during this time, the Guardians of the Globe would have showed up to their base, as they would have been met with Omni-Man. And if you know the series, you know what is going on. They get patched, boxed up, shipped, and kissed with a little pat by Omni-Man. They get boxed up. I feel like Red Rush had the worst of it. I mean, the dude was moving so fast, he felt every bone in his body and his head crush. It was GG's. Like, how your eye pop out? Like, that pain. The pain of that, bro. That's crazy, though. But yeah, basically, Omni-Man boxes up everybody. Just straight up sends everybody to the gulag like it's nothing, as he would have passed out. As we were getting hit hours later, as well, we were seeing that the Plumber Academy would have shown up first, them seeing that the other place or the other organization was showing up very soon, as they would have realized that they need to get out of here, and they need to let, them handle this. This is more of a Earth level type of thing. As one of the, Academy people there, let's say a certain furry friend from the Omniverse series Ben's very close with was there, as he would have been kind of mourning after Martian Man's death, as Martian Man was a very close friend and actually worked for the Plumber Academy his first couple years on Earth. But yeah, so I'm gonna leave it out here, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. As always, guys, have a blessed day. Part 1, Season 2 of What If Shazam Was an Invincible is coming tomorrow, or is coming on Sunday. But yeah, so also we'll be gaming and doing more reaction videos around the weekend time, because that's normally where I have enough time to record all day and edit it and send it out. So you know what I'm saying. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe. As always, guys, have a blessed day. Deuces.